The settlement of Archon 7 was not a place for the faint-hearted. Orbiting a dying sun on the fringes of the Heliarch cluster, it was a rough-and-tumble hub for miners, traders, and mercenaries. Its population was small, but its stories were large. Some whispered in fear, others laughed about in disbelief. Among them was the story of Kael Rendar, a human X-space pilot who had traded his ship for a modest home in the settlement. Kael was not the type to attract attention. Medium height, wiry frame, and with a perpetually distracted air, he spent most of his time repairing salvaged machinery or tinkering with old droids. Life had a predictable rhythm. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. But all of that changed the day he placed an unusual advertisement in the settlement's bulletin. "I need a cook," it read, terse and to the point. "Willing to hire unusual applicants." The phrase unusual applicants was not a euphemism. Kael, unlike most, had learned to see past appearances. When the response came, a single application from a silent, towering alien woman, he was intrigued, not frightened. Her name was Velyra. Standing over 8 feet tall, her skin shimmered faintly in shades of silver and violet, like the remnants of a nebula trapped beneath glass. Her eyes, large and multifaceted, reflected light in a way that made them appear almost like liquid gemstones. She said nothing in her application, only attaching a simple note: "I can cook. I do not speak much. I learn quickly." When Kael met her in person, he expected awkwardness, maybe tension. What he did not expect was the aura of silent authority she carried. She moved with a grace that seemed impossible for her size, and her gaze was disarmingly intelligent, as if she could see through to the very mechanics of his thoughts. "Do you cook?" Kael asked, feeling slightly ridiculous. She nodded once. That was all. No smiles, no gestures. Just a nod. He shrugged. "Well, the kitchen won't clean itself." The first few days were strange. Velyra worked in complete silence, chopping, sautéing, and baking with surgical precision. But it wasn't just the taste of her food, it was the transformation of the kitchen itself. Within hours, counters gleamed as if polished by a fleet of robots, utensils aligned perfectly, and strange, subtle devices appeared in corners that Kael had never noticed before. By the end of the first week, Kael was beginning to relax. His meals were nutritious, delicious, and oddly comforting. He had started to wonder if the giant alien woman could be trusted entirely, but trust was earned over time, right? Then came the night that changed everything. Kael returned from a routine scavenging trip at the mining sector. The settlement's twin suns were setting, casting long, eerie shadows over his home. He stepped into the kitchen, expecting to find Velyra quietly preparing dinner. What he found instead froze him in place. The entire kitchen was gone. Or transformed. Where counters, appliances, and cabinets had been, there was now a smooth metallic surface that pulsed faintly with light. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting subtly, and in the center of it all stood Velyra. Her normally calm, neutral eyes glowed a deep, radiant blue. "Velyra?" Kael's voice trembled. What happened here?" She did not speak. She lifted her hands, palms open. In a ripple of light and sound, the room changed again. Ingredients floated mid-air. Vegetables, meats, spices, and liquids orbiting in a slow, hypnotic dance. They combined into dishes that seemed impossible. Soups that glimmered with their own internal light, bread that emitted a faint warmth and hummed softly, and sauces that sparkled like molten jewels. Kael stumbled back. This isn't cooking." She finally spoke, her voice deep and resonant, echoing as though it came from many places at once. "It is. Just not as you know it." "What do you mean?" "I prepare sustenance in the way my species has for millennia. Food is energy, life, and memory. Each dish contains more than flavor. It carries stability, health, and awareness." Kael blinked, uncertain whether he should be terrified or fascinated. You're saying your food can affect a person?" Velyra nodded. Then, without warning, she gestured to the largest dish, a glowing stew filled with shimmering crystals of protein and exotic herbs. See. Hesitant but mesmerized, Kael reached for a spoon. The moment the stew touched his lips, everything changed. The world became sharp, vivid, and impossibly detailed. He could hear the faint hum of his home's machinery, the micro-vibrations of the walls, the flow of air and currents he had never noticed before. His thoughts felt clearer, his body lighter, more capable. He realized, with a mixture of awe and fear, that he could feel her presence. Velyra's intertwined with the kitchen, intertwined with him. Your food, he stammered. It's giving me awareness. Yes, she said simply. It can heal, it can enhance, it can warn. But it is not for indulgence. It is responsibility. Over the following days, Kael began to understand just how profound Velyra's abilities were. The kitchen itself became an extension of her consciousness. She could manipulate the molecular structure of ingredients, infusing them with energy that healed wounds, sharpened senses, and even heightened intuition. Kael began to notice subtle changes in himself. Aches he had carried for years disappeared, his reactions were faster, and he could anticipate small dangers before they happened. But with these gifts came unease. Velyra never explained her past, her origins, or why she had come to this remote settlement. And yet, the more Kael learned from her food, the more he realized that her powers were not limited to cooking. She had the ability to perceive threats at a distance, to analyze machinery, even to influence environmental systems within the house. It was both wondrous and terrifying. One night, Kael confronted her. Velyra, why are you here? Why me? She paused as if considering how much to reveal. Then, in a voice softer than usual, she said, I am here because your presence drew me. Not because of you personally, but because the structure you inhabit was a nexus, small but significant. I maintain balance. Your home, your life, it needed correction. Kael's stomach churned. Correction? Not punishment, she clarified. Protection. There are forces in this sector. Forces that prey upon weakness. Your ignorance made you vulnerable. I do not destroy, but I prevent destruction. It was only then that Kael realized the truth. Hiring her as a cook had not been a simple employment decision. He had invited a being of immense power into his life, a guardian disguised as a domestic assistant. And in doing so, he had unknowingly stepped into a wider conflict. A web of cosmic currents, unseen predators, and forces far beyond human comprehension. The weeks that followed blurred the line between routine and revelation. Velyra's cooking became an education. Each meal taught Kael about energy manipulation, biosignatures, and even rudimentary psionic awareness. The settlement's miners and traders began to notice subtle shifts in Kael's behavior. His calm, almost prescient demeanor, his uncanny ability to avoid accidents, and the way his once meager home seemed almost alive. Rumors spread. They whispered about the human who had hired the giant alien woman and the strange glow that sometimes emanated from his home at night. Some said he had found a relic of an ancient race. Others believed he had made a bargain with a being of otherworldly power. Kael did not correct them. He did not need to. The truth was more complicated than any rumor could capture. One evening, as the twin suns of Archon 7 dipped below the horizon, Kael watched Velyra in the kitchen. She was preparing a simple meal, rice, vegetables, a few cuts of protein, but even this mundane task carried elegance and precision. I understand now, Kael said quietly. You didn't come to cook. You came to protect, to teach, to elevate me. Velyra's multifaceted eyes reflected his own image back at him. She nodded once. And you accepted willingly or not. That is why you live in understanding, not fear. Kael smiled, but it was a fragile thing. He had glimpsed the magnitude of the universe, the hidden currents of life, and the power that one being could wield quietly without fanfare. The lesson was clear. In this galaxy, appearances were deceiving, and even the smallest choices could ripple into unimaginable consequences. And as he sat down to eat the meal she had prepared, Kael understood why he had been terrified at first. Not because Velyra was dangerous, though she certainly could have been, but because the reality of her existence and the universe she revealed was far larger, stranger, and more profound than he had ever imagined. By the end of that week, the human and the giant alien cook had formed an unspoken bond, a partnership built on respect, trust, and the understanding that the universe was far bigger than either of them. Kael no longer feared what the week had revealed. Instead, he embraced it, ready for the lessons, challenges, and mysteries that lay ahead. Because in a galaxy of silent giants, hidden power, and unimaginable threats, one thing was certain. Some choices, like hiring a mysterious alien cook, could change a human life forever.